What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. We're glad you're here. Happy Halloween. We're filming this on Halloween. Brett and I are actually, I'm realizing this, we're wearing the same shirt, just in different colors. You're wearing the navy and I'm wearing the black. One of us should have changed.
Yep, black and blue.
Yeah, but we just got our outdoor walk in, and as we were walking, there were trick-or-treaters starting to form outside. So that got me thinking, and this is going to be on brand and kind of cheesy, but it was something that I was thinking about because it was a topic that was discussed on a podcast just briefly that had me just reflecting. Are you pretending to be someone else? You know, more than just on Halloween, more than just on that one day where you're, you know, playing a fictitious character, but are you dressing up as someone that you truly aren't every single day? Are you not being authentic to your true self? So Brett and I were talking about that on our walk, and we just wanted to talk about it because Brett brought up some really good examples just in his own life. So I'll have him talk about it first. But I think that it's something that we often see as you see someone successful or someone that you look up to, a role model of yours, and then you think, if I can emulate them and if I can become a carbon copy of them, then I surely will I will be them and I will reach whatever level that they have that I envy. And I think there's nuance to it where we've talked about in the past, like acting as if you already are the best version of yourself. But you have to understand that there's a difference between acting as if you are that best version of yourself and, you know, putting those habits in place that start to build and create that person that you're imagining, that version of yourself, versus acting as if you are this other human being that's also existing on the earth with you, you know? So I want you to talk about your experience when you said you were in like elementary or junior high, whenever, and then just growing up.
Okay. So, yeah, I've had the unique experience of just being able to self-reflect and look back and identify the potholes that I stepped in along the way. And it started whenever I was younger, just because I had a lack of self-esteem. And every little kid, or, you know, even as you're just maturing and developing, you see somebody and you want to be like them. You know, you kind of make them your role model, or, you know, to a larger extent, you may idolize them. And in my younger years, like junior high, younger high school years, there was a specific guy that pretty much emulated what I wanted to be. And that's Gage Rozier for anybody that's local. And I remember wanting to dress like him, act like him, be like him whenever it came to sports and just how he carried himself. And that even carried on into later in life. Whenever I graduated from school, I came back and started working in my hometown. And we have a family business. And I remember watching how my dad interacted with his clients. And I remember thinking, okay, well, in order for them to accept me, I basically need to be a carbon copy of him. And I need to just try to literally say the exact same thing that he would say, so that, you know, it's not really a transition for these people. They just continue on talking to me like they would have talked to him. And it was exhausting. Like, that mindset is exhausting, to try to think how somebody else would think and what they would say, and never truly get to just be comfortable in your own skin and be yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad that it is exhausting, but it's so cool to just watch you self-reflect on that, and the fact that you can identify that. It's also, my eyes, it's twitching, it's driving me crazy. It's very distracting. It's a compliment and a tip of the cap to those men also, that you respect and you admire them enough that you want to be like them. But there's a difference between wanting to have characteristics and share that with them and just wanting to be them. You know, I had kind of a reverse situation where when I was in 8th grade, I was a good athlete growing up, and I was always a very, very hard worker. I've always been a very hard worker when it comes to exercise and, you know, working out, PE, weights, all of that. I was like I I was a narc when it came to that. Like I didn't miss a lift, I didn't skip reps, any of that. Like I did my shit. And because of that, I progressed really fast in terms of sports. So when I was in 8th grade, I don't know why this happened, or like what scenario this was allowed, but the high school girls track team needed people to help to run with them because there was not enough, like it was an all relay meet, and there was not enough high schoolers on our girls team, I guess, because our coach was like a hard ass. So they were a little softer. They wanted to take it slow. They skipped reps. If he wasn't looking, they would dog it and stuff. So for some reason, this meet, they needed extra people to run. So they grabbed me and some of my classmates that also ran. And we were all really hard workers, like the 4 of us that were in 8th grade at that time. And also we were excited to be part of high school and be like that. And I remember we were on the bus to this track meet, and the high school girls were like, listen, we are not going to go hard. Like, we're not going to kill ourselves over this. This track meet means nothing. We're not going to die. Like, take it easy. Don't make us look bad. And I remember like having that awareness that I was like, so if I want them to like me, if I want them to accept me, and I'm going to be in school with them for the next few years, then I need to act different than I do right now. Like, it's very clear that the way that I act right now is not the way they want me to. Mm-hmm. And that sucked just as a realization, because there was girls that I looked up to and girls that I was excited to form relationships and friendships with. And throughout my high school career, I had a really hard time making friends with girls for just a number of reasons. But I do think that being one issue was not an issue, but it was a characteristic that I did not like. I was very authentic throughout high school. I did not pretend to be someone else. But then as I got into college, I wanted friendship so bad, because I didn't have that. And I had a lot of friction with girls throughout that adolescent phase that I think I molded a little bit more in college. And I did start to act like the people that I saw that were accepted. And I did start to just pick up their behaviors because they had so many friends and they looked so fun, and you know, they seemed carefree. And if I acted in a similar way to them, then I would be accepted just like they were. So I think that mine kind of reversed roles, where I had that autonomy and that just independence in who I was and awareness of what I brought to the table earlier. And then I went through a phase where I wanted camaraderie. So I started acting like what I thought I was supposed to act. And I started looking at people that were very popular and had a lot of friends and were successful in their social groups, and I just clung to them and I started emulating them. But then after I graduated and I got into more of like the professional fitness realm, the Instagram fitness realm, all of that, and I had a teeny tiny little platform at this time when I started posting. Like, actually, I think I changed my name to Lexi J Wellness on Instagram, which sounded so like that was a big deal to change it. It was my actual personal name, which I think it was Lexi Johnson by then because we were married. But I changed it from Lexi Johnson to Lexi J Wellness, and I felt like a fraud. And I was like, all of these people that, you know, I was blending in with the crowd are going to see me doing this, and I'm going to stand out like a sore thumb. It's going to be so embarrassing.
Right, because we were deliberating at the time over whether or not you were going to have a separate account.
Yeah, because I didn't want to bother anyone. Anyone that was already friends with me, that's already seen my personal stuff, I didn't want to be an inconvenience.
Right. I remember that being a big conversation at the time.
Yeah.
Which is funny to look back on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is your identity, and there's no need to hide it.
Yeah, and it's so important to me. And that's what social media and like those social platforms should be about. It's about sharing things that are really important to you. Where, I mean, if I had a baby or something like that, I would share them shamelessly because it's something that's incredibly important to me. Lexi J Wellness is my baby.
Yeah, and when you are the brand, you know, you have to wear it.
Yeah, but then as I started to grow, and it happened a lot slower, but I was looking to people that were more established in the fitness industry and super successful and that had big platforms, and I was like, you know, doing that same thing. I was pretending to be someone else for a little bit, and I remember I would try to make a lot of like really complex movements and do workouts that had never been seen before, because I would see influencers doing these crazy like jump 4 times, kick yourself off of a wall, do a burpee over a rock in a national park, and then do 4 pull-ups. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, we're going to make this really interesting. I'm in my basement alone, but I'm going to do something crazy like that. And looking back, it's just cool to see how it's evolved, because I've gotten just like back to basics. And if you know me well enough, or if you've just followed me or heard me talk for a long time, I am very much a basics are the basics kind of girl. Like, I like to keep it very simple. That's the way I live my own life, and that's the way that I coach and advise with my clients. But looking back, I just wanted so badly to be like those people that stood out and seemed to have it all figured out. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do something that I don't actually do, but I can record something for 30 seconds and put a video up and say that I do that, and that's how I got this. Got the physique I have and the health I have, and it's inauthentic. But like Brett said, it's exhausting trying to be like someone else. And if you're posting like someone else, and you're dressing like someone else, and you're phrasing your words and talking like someone else, it's only a matter of time. Like, the jig is up eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the funny part is, like, the person that you are trying to emulate in that moment, they're evolving too. Like, and they're not looking in the mirror and being like, I want to be like me. They're always, most likely they're looking at somebody, or, they're observing people that they look up to, and they're also trying to change. So it's a moving target. You can't try to be somebody else, because they're also trying to become, a better version of themselves, or maybe they're even idolizing somebody else as well. But point is, like, if you're not true to yourself, then you're never truly going to feel at home in your own life. And that's the realization that I eventually had. And it was probably like, there were so many things that changed in our life. And like, I don't know, that whenever we just arrived in that personal development arena, started taking care of ourselves, got exposed to First Form. I mean, there was just so much that changed right there. And I think that the books probably helped shed a lot of light on that for me. Just being able to realize that I didn't have to continue doing what I was doing. I didn't have to continue trying to be somebody that I wasn't. And that the more that I was me, the more that I would most likely be accepted anyway, because it's fraudulent to try to look like somebody else and talk like somebody else. Like, it's very easy to see through that.
And it's like, you're never going to be someone else. And that's okay, because no one else will also be you. And as cheesy as it is, it's like, that's the cool thing, because you trying to be someone else, you're like the Great Value diet version of that person you're emulating, or that person you're idolizing. However, you are the name brand Lexi Johnson. Like, you are the name brand Brett Johnson. You are the name brand you. So diluting yourself to be someone else is really doing yourself a disservice. And if you look at it in that term, like, you bring so much to the table, and by putting on this facade where you're acting like someone else, and you're playing dress up and pretending to have all these qualities and these traits that truly aren't authentic to you, and then you go home and you take your makeup off, and at the end of the day, you're like, well, I can hang her up until tomorrow when I get all dressed up and I pretend to be that person again. Mm-hmm. But it just comes back to authenticity, and people understand that. Like, you can't keep it up for very long. And if you do just try to stay in this act, then it's very easy to see. I think that when I started to lean into just being like kind of goofy and weird, and sharing just my, the things that made me, just being more authentic, I think that opened me up a lot more to having more genuine relationships with the people that I worked with, getting, actual friendships outside of just superficial surface layer interactions and things like that. And it's just, that would have never happened if I was continuing to pretend to be someone that I thought that they would like. Because the people that are going to stick around, that actually like, that you want to be around, that enjoy your company, that you reciprocate that enjoyment, they like you because you're you. They don't like you because you're pretending to be someone else.
Yeah. Question. So this was a long time ago. So whether or not this is something that you'll be aware of now. I don't know. But so like circling back to like whenever you were talking about the girls that you looked up to in high school and they basically told you to dog it, you know, because they didn't want to look bad if, you know, if you guys were trying hard. In that moment, like there's obviously like the moment, like the realization that you have, like the mental process that you go through, like, oh, these girls like aren't who I thought they were. And then there's almost, for me anyway, I could definitely see myself being like making excuses for them because I want them to be who I wanted them to be. Like, did you have the self-confidence in the moment to like recognize that right then and there and be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be what you want me to be. I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah. We actually won that meet because we kicked ass. So I remember that conversation and being like, this is embarrassing for you. I hate that. Like because I thought that they were so cool. And when they said that, I was like, dang, like don't meet your idols is basically how I was feeling, you know, like it just, that was a letdown because I looked up to you. But I, being the approval junkie I am, I kind of had to weigh my options. I was like, would I rather get the approval of that coach that I admire so much that I really want to impress, or would I rather get the approval of these girls that are clearly not working very hard, that I conjured up an image of that they're obviously not living up to. So it kind of was exposing to me of their character, and I was like, oh well, moving on.
Yeah. That like, and that's a culture thing too. Like I can't even hardly, that wouldn't have happened at our school. So it's hard for me to relate to. With girls, it maybe that's a more common thing. With the guys, like that would never ever have happened at our school. Like we just take sports super seriously. But girls, I don't like. I feel like the high school girl arena that can get really hazy really quick. Like you have the girls that are going to take it super seriously, and the ones that want to be cool, even if they know that it's not cool, but they want to, you know, they want to take it easy. I don't know. I could see myself in high school if I had that same situation. I would have had too much pride. I would have done the same thing you would have done. I wouldn't have dogged it at all. But I could have totally seen myself almost making excuses for them and not having until later, you know, like coming to terms with the fact that they aren't who I thought they were.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was just more exposing because I did look up to them, and it was good for me. It was a good experience that I had because then it was telling that I don't need to pretend to be anyone else because the people that I looked up to and thought so much of, like they're human just like you and I, and it turns out that not all the traits they have are the ones that I want. So I might as well just rock with what I have and my strengths.
Do you think you had more confidence than the average girl at that age?
I would say so, probably.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I would.
It's hard to
say so.
self-assess, especially in the past like that.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that I was really insecure about, but sports were never one, just because that was the arena that I really excelled in.
Yeah.
So like socially, I struggled. I did not have a lot of friends, and like I had a hard time. But sports, I knew what I was bringing to the table, so I felt good there.
Right. It felt very definite.
Yeah.
There were no questions.
Which is just also like, if that's the arena that you have the most confidence in, and someone's asking you to compromise on, I wasn't willing to do that. Because that was my strength. That's what I felt the best at. That's what made me feel like me. So if I were to show up fraudulent there, then I think that the rest of everything would crumble, because that was the highest, point of self-esteem for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was for me too. Sports in general. Mm-hmm. Certain sports more than others, but yeah, that was truly, that was how I think I identified myself in high school for sure.
Nowadays, you and I are very, I wouldn't say antisocial, but we don't have a rich social life, to say the least. But like when we're in those social situations, do you find yourself acting like someone else that's not necessarily you sometimes? Or do you think that you have a good head on your shoulders in terms of just showing up authentically?
It depends on the environment, who's there, what the event is. I'm ironically, I think I'm more authentically me whenever I'm at an event of yours, which is interesting. I think that
That's interesting.
I think I still have ties to like the just the small town hometown thing. You know, it's hard to go back to your hometown and not be a little bit of, I don't know, try to hold on to a piece that's not really you, that you know fits. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to what I'm describing here, but whenever you go back to like your roots, back to where you grew up, it's not easy to go back and not fall back into, not necessarily fall back into, but just
Associate with
change your personality a little bit to fit the mold. So that way you don't stick out.
I was going to say, do you think you do it more for yourself or for them?
For them.
Because
I don't want them to feel uncomfortable that I'm not like them, or, you know, that I'm a little different, or that I have different priorities, or that, you know, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I think it's less about me. I mean, there probably is an element. I don't want to make it sound like I'm doing this so selflessly, you know, I'm just such a selfless character, but I'm sure there's a selfish act to it as well, not wanting to feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point. I would agree to that. It's interesting that you feel like you can show up more authentically at my events. I like that.
I think that I don't know, I just have a pretty strong self-awareness at this point, continue to get more self-aware, but I mean, that culture embodies more of the way that we live now, really, you know. It's hard whenever you adopt a totally different lifestyle than what you used to have whenever you were growing up, and it's not like, you know, really anybody, you know, that you grew up around, they're not doing anything that you're doing now. They don't live the same way that, you know, that we live now. But that's, I guess, what makes Lexi J Wellness pretty unique is that you've created your own culture. So you started new, you know, so you got to create something from start to now, you know. There was nothing before. It's all new. So you got to create something, and it's your baby, kind of like what you said. So because of that, there's nothing to hide, if you will. There's nothing to try to act like, because you get to be authentically exactly what you've created, which is you know.
Yeah. And it's been neat just in the, 3.5 years now, because I am not the same person that I was when I first started Lexi J Wellness, but we've evolved, and because authenticity and uncompromising authenticity is one of our core values, it's really important. They've kind of grown with me and watched that evolution of me as well. So it's a ride. I mean, there's no end destination.
Right.
But I think that just being open along the way is what has brought us to this point, and continue to bring people into the culture and the ecosystem, because people want to be part of something that's real, and they want to be part of something that's larger than themselves that is also real. And especially in the fitness and the just that industry in general, there's so much highlight reel and so much fakeness that it's exhausting and it's unrealistic, and it's so exclusive and unwelcoming, where if you do have people that are showing up and they're like, dang, this is the last thing I wanted to do, but I'm doing it. And if you have someone that talks about their mental health and their poor body image days, and they're that person that maybe you looked up to, or maybe you would otherwise be like, well, I'm going to act like her because she has no problems. But if that person that you're looking at and the person that you're idolizing is also admitting that they have those same struggles that you do, it really kind of levels the playing field, and you're like, well, shit. If she's dealing with that same thing, then I might as well just show up right here and show up with what I've got. That way I can do a little bit more tomorrow and a little bit more the next day. Yeah, I think that just being successful in anything comes down to you're not going to be able to grow to the capacity that you want if you're stuck inside someone else, the costume of someone else, pretending to be, the shell of a human.
Right. Yeah, I mean, speaking of costumes, it's not a Bruce Wayne situation, kind of like you and, having a separate profile. That's kind of how I would, that's a good metaphor for it. Like if you had created a totally separate profile for
you said Bruce Wayne, I'm thinking like a Hannah Montana situation, like the best of both worlds.
I mean, you don't put on your Batman suit at night and, create a totally separate identity, because if you had done that, I guarantee that you would have had little to no success in getting any traction, because you have to be all in. You have to be authentically you, and you adopted that identifier, and you are Lexi J Wellness, and you wear it on your sleeve.
Yeah, there's still a lot that I can work on, but if there is one thing that I continue to make a priority, and I will continue to, it's just being me. It would be exhausting I've got enough on my mind right now as Lexi. I can't imagine trying to keep up with everything if I was pretending to be someone else while also managing this.
Yeah, I certainly still have a lot to work on in that arena. I've gotten a hell of a lot better, but like I've already exposed about myself just in this conversation, that there's always room for improvement in that arena, especially if you're kind of like me and you grew up with lacking a little self-esteem and always wanted to try to be somebody else and fit the mold, of what people expected you to be.
It's easier to show up when you are confident in yourself. And you know what brings confidence in yourself? Doing the things that you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That person that you idolize, the person that you emulate, they simply just do the things that they set out to do. They do the things that they said that they would, and that has allowed them to reach the level of success that has brought them into your vision.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not off the table for you. It's just a matter of doing the things that you set out to do consistently, and then allowing time to do its thing.
Yeah, being accountable to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a question you can ask yourself. Just, are you reliable to you? You would describe yourself in an instant as reliable to your spouse and to your children and to your best friends and to your coworkers. But are you reliable to you? If future you, was waging a bet on whether present day you was going to show up, would it be a safe bet? Like, are you reliable to yourself? Do you have any closing thoughts?
Just on what you said there, if you haven't gone down the path of trying like 75 hard, that's a great starter. If you're not accountable to yourself, it's a great way to start. Put some tools in your tool belt, just discipline and grit. It's a very what's the word that I typically use to describe 75 hard? It's a good
tactical guide to build mental fortitude.
Yeah, it builds so much confidence, just being able to believe in yourself and knowing that you can do exactly what you set out to do. Is it really what it comes down to is you just making the little choices day after day, time after time, and not compromising. But yeah, I think that's a good stepping stone, but yeah, that's all I got.
Alrighty, guys. I hope you have a happy November. Holy crap, we are already in the 11th month of the year.
It's crazy.
It is wild. But that being said, just because November feels like New Year's Eve does not mean the year is over. We still have 2 full months left, and that is so much time to make sustainable changes and just to set yourself up for success in 2024. So I think that if you're waiting around to become the best version of yourself, you're wasting your time. It is never too late to get started, but it is always too late to wait. So
maybe next week or the week after that, we'll talk about phase 1.
Yeah.
So we'll be
a little roundup.
Yeah, we'll be almost finished up next week.
That's right.
I'm feeling good. How about you?
I'm feeling really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing what 30 days, how not even 30 days, how much progress you can make in 30 days.
It honestly has me contemplating, like, should I do 75 hard soon?
Yeah,
Just
it
because
feels
I
good.
crave that feeling. It
Feels
feels
good.
so good.
Yeah.
And if I'm waking up and doing a cold shower already and doing all the extra tasks, 75 hard is like, all right, we're just going to keep going.
Right. Yeah.
Stay
It just
tuned.
feels like we're firing on all cylinders for
Our
sure.
crazy asses may do that. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. We will talk to you later. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, anything you want to hear about, you can email those to our email.
At pod@lexijwellness.com.
Until then, we'll talk to you next Wednesday.